Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. And in the wake of the Rassie Erasmus verdict and the ban and the 80-page document, of which, admittedly, I've not finished reading the entire thing. It is 80 pages, but gone through quite a lot of it and stuff like that. I think it's been quite interesting what the reaction was going to be. And I think it's always going to be quite a very strong showing for Rassie Erasmus from the South African public, who are obviously going to back one of their own and stuff like that. And I think that at the end of the day, I think World Rugby this year have not sort of shed themselves in particularly good light at any stage, at any time. The World Rugby Awards certainly did not help, but I also just think that the way in which they've conducted themselves throughout this entire fiasco has lost them so much credibility. But I do think that we need to be very careful with the way we react to the verdict, the hearings, the charge and stuff like that, and the conclusions we draw. And I think that the reason I'm making this video is because I've never done this before. I've never done a video which is completely a response to a response, really. But waking up today to an article labeled, and I quote, "Rassie latest, World Rugby's racists nail Sia for speaking up." An article by Mark Johann on his website and shared by SA Rugby Magazine, which is currently one of the biggest, probably the biggest SA publication in the country. And I just felt that I needed to have a response to this, not because I'm involved, but because I just think it's very dangerous. And I think that we have to be very very careful with the way we react to this. And I think it's a very poorly written article, a very poor taste. And I think it creates a very difficult narrative. And so I just want to sort of put my sort of response out there and maybe, and I'd like to do this on a live show and have a bit more of a discussion with people. But I know I won't be able to do that for a while. So I just want to put it out there and get people's opinions in the comments and let me know. But I think it becomes a very dangerous action to start labeling this hearing and the charges brought upon SA Rugby as having racism at its core. And I think it becomes very dangerous and very difficult when you start throwing out such big accusations and then not really being able to back them up. And I think at this stage, look, I mean, and it's a very tricky subject, isn't it? It always is a very tricky subject. You know, you do have to tiptoe around sometimes and maybe sort of face it and actually have a think about it and sit there saying, is there more to it than just what meets the eye? But first of all, I think to suggest that Nick Berry is racist, which isn't entirely the case, that there isn't entirely an accusation towards Nick Berry, but so I think that's a stretch for the beginning. And apparently Nick Berry, for that we may not rate him, and for that I don't think he was particularly good in that test match, was apparently very upset about the whole thing, and individually sought out Sia Khaleesi and apologized. He said, if you did felt that it would be disrespected at any time, I'm truly sorry, wasn't the intention, whatever. I don't think the treatment was entirely fair. I think there were definitely scenarios where I think it was frustrating that Sia Khaleesi wasn't able to voice his opinion. But I want to look at this article because I want to look at exactly what is being inferred here. And I think the reason I think this article is so dangerous, I think, is when you read the actual article itself, especially some of the phrasing. I think that it gets it horribly wrong. And I think that we need to make the main issue and not try and create something for the sake of clicks or traction or be seen to be defending something. And unfortunately, I think that this journalist this year has created a lot of inflammatory tweets, has created a lot of very dangerous narratives for almost, and it does seem for the sake of trying to stay relevant. And I don't want to come out and attack someone who is, no one said doing something necessarily similar to me, because I've never considered this channel mainstream media. You know, I've always felt that we're a bit different to mainstream media. We're not backed by any major, financial things. We're not tied to anybody. We're very much just a little fan channel that just jumps on you and has a good time. But I look at the article and I think that when you start having phrases like this, where it says, in a week when all of English cricket is being shamed and disgraced for inherent racism that the racists can't even recognize as racist behavior, with a typo, by the way, World Rugby's very white and very northern-based white leadership, led by the former British and Irish Lions and England captain Bill Beaumont, seconded a marriage defiant to be delivered publicly 3 days before the World Champions Springboks happened to play against England in a match all England have described as the biggest of the year. Timing is obviously predictable. The bias and prejudice is obvious, and in one moment of absolute white supremacist stupidity, World Rugby has shown itself to be an all-boys club that will continue to promote prejudice and racism. This club must be cancelled forever. I don't think we can go that far. At the end of the day, I don't think we can go that far. I think, prejudice towards South Africa is one thing, if there is, and if it's merited. To go and say that World Rugby is a white, their hearing it was an action of white supremacism, stupidity, is a very dangerous accusation, and one which I don't think it has a lot of merit. And to go on and sit there and say that World Rugby happily supports a finding that punishes a world champion black international captain and awards a white match official who treats whites and black captains differently and then takes out the white coach stands for his black captain is also just inherently not true. Siya Kolisi has not been punished by World Rugby or by the independent hearing. The independent hearing literally said that they do not find enough evidence to be able to prove that, because basically what World Rugby said is that they did not like the way that Nzwandile Stick and Siya Kolisi handled that press conference on the Friday, and they said that they felt that Siya Kolisi and Nzwandile Stick were put up to it by Rassie Erasmus, and they had to defend him, and they had to come out and build this narrative that Siya Kolisi was disrespected. Now, World Rugby, or the inquiry, did not find these charges to be true. They did not say that there was enough evidence to be able to prove that what they said was not true, and that they weren't allowed to say what they said. Where the charge has been laid to SA Rugby was the fact that they should not have said anything at all. SA Rugby have basically been punished by ensuring that they did not speak about the issue. They said, it was more about a failure to prevent them speaking at all, not what they actually said. And I think that's a very, very important difference. So Siya Kolisi and Nzwandile Stick have not been punished at all. SA Rugby have been punished about the failure to prevent them from speaking about the issue, not about what they said. And I think that's very important. And we've got to keep the facts there. We've got to keep the main thing. And I want to try and quote from the actual hearing and stuff. So the important thing over here, so over here, it's where it says 111 on page 35 of 80. Neither Siya Kolisi and Nzwandile Stick were witnesses. We have not heard from them. We have watched the press conference and considered transcripts of the comments. The relevant exchanges are on row 90, appendix 2. It is important to appreciate that what Siya Kolisi did in this interview was to express his own feelings or belief. Observing from a distance, which is all we can do, Siya Kolisi is a deeply impressive individual who leads the Springbok team with distinction. We have no reason to doubt the genuineness of his feelings. However, that is not the same as asserting as a fact that he had been disrespected, nor that his feelings are correct. During his evidence, Nick Berry told us that he had massive respect for Siya Kolisi as a person, as a player. So concerned was he by the reported feelings of unfair treatment that at the second test he sought him out and apologized if he had done anything which created the contrary impression. We accept without reservation Nick Berry's evidence that he and his officiation team did not intentionally disrespect Siya Kolisi. During his closing submission, Mr. Plumans described the issue as the elephant in the room. With respect, we disagree. It was plain to us that Rassie Erasmus was and remains aggrieved at what he saw at the unequal treatment of Siya Kolisi. This was part of the motivation for making the Erasmus video. However, the alleged treatment of the Springbok captain by the match official was not central to this case. Okay, so again, the case is about the video that was made questioning the officials, not whether there was or was not equal treatment of Siya Kolisi in that test. So that's the whole point. They're different issues. This is the main issue. This is why we're here. Not necessarily here for that. Returning to charge SA Rugby 2, neither Siya Kolisi nor Nzwandile Stick have been charged with misconduct arising out of their comments. They have not been charged. They have not been punished. It says, when Ms. Potts was asked about that by Mr. Hampton, she said that this was because World Rugby was not alleging that those comments per se were necessarily insulting. The charge was put upon the basis that Saru failed to instruct those persons and others not to comment at all on the match officials and officials in the first test. We do not agree with World Rugby's assessment of the answers given by Sia Khaleesi and Zwandia Stick. They did not offend the direction from Alan Gilpin, as they did not include any allegation about the integrity of the match officials. We also do not agree with World Rugby's assessment of the answers given by Sia Khaleesi and Zwandia Stick. We do not access these comments to be ill-disciplined or unsporting, nor ones which adversely affected the game. Therefore, the core foundation of the charges falls away. So, the inferment then in the article is that obviously it's the independent commission, and they've said that they are very happy with what they said, that there's no issues there. Obviously, then World Rugby were basically implying that they do have issues with what they said. So that's where this article sort of goes more about World Rugby than the actual independent commission. But first of all, to say that he's been punished, he's not been punished. Sia Khaleesi has not been punished. Nadia Stick has not been punished. Let's make that very, very clear. That is not the case. SA Rugby been punished for ensuring that they did not talk about the incident. So, and again, World Rugby did not like what those two had to say. I don't think you can go as far as to say that they do not like them because it was two black South Africans standing up and saying it. I think given the situation, if it was Don Human and Dwayne Vermeulen who had said the same things, I think World Rugby would be just as upset. And just as, I think that at the end of the day, they were always going to come down to anything that sort of poured fuel on the fire that was the Rassie Erasmus video. I think it becomes very, very dangerous to start going into a pathway of making sure that the entire thing runs along a racism line. And I think it's difficult to sort of be able to sort of plot a clear route which does imply that it is racist. And I think we need to be very careful about it. And unfortunately, I think that the merit of the article and the reasoning behind the article is not to genuinely try and what's the word I'm looking for? To identify a match of racism. I think it has been done because it's a nice little way to try and gain a bit of traction. I think it's very frustrating to try and go that route. But I want to know what people here think. I want to know in the comments what you think. Do you think that there is a case for that? Because personally, I think that World Rugby at the moment are as good at growing the game as a blunt knife. I think they're a shocker. I think that World Rugby are a complete joke. I really do. But to go on and talk about white supremacism within World Rugby, I think is a stretch. And I think we need to be careful. And I think, unfortunately, when we write articles like this, I think it just takes away any credibility towards anything that we can actually have, which has actually have got merit. So it's a bit of a long video. And maybe I've rambled a bit. And maybe I've ranted a bit. But it's a very complex issue. And I just think that in such a complex issue, in especially so early on in the findings and stuff like that, you know, have you really had time to go through an 80-page document, understand exactly what happened? Can we really come out and make these claims? Are they founded or are they unfounded? And if they're unfounded, it becomes very dangerous, because then what you do is you remove any credibility towards any legitimate racism claims in the future issues of any sort. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. I want to know your opinion down in the comments below. Do you think there is a point? Do you think this article has any merit, or what do you think? I personally think it's dangerous. I personally think that and unfortunately, I think the motivation to write it was all wrong as well. And I think that when we start to write stuff like that, I think we remove a lot of credibility towards what we want to say. I think that's always a dangerous thing as well. But let me know in the comments below, and I'll chat to you guys soon.